My name is Anna Brooks. I'm 30 years old, and 3 days after we buried my grandmother, my mother stood up at her memorial dinner, looked me in the eye in front of the whole family, and said, "Anna, just give the ring back before this gets uglier." For a few seconds, I could not even understand what she meant. The dining room was full of people who had come to remember Grandma Rose. Her framed photo was on the mantel, with white lilies around it. Her old church friends were sitting in folding chairs near the window. My Aunt Carol was holding a plate of food she had barely touched. My sister Melissa sat across from me, with her hands folded in her lap, her engagement ring finger tucked under a napkin like she was cold. Her fiancé Evan stood behind her chair, staring down at his phone. Everyone turned toward me. My mother's face was pale but determined, like she had rehearsed this in the mirror and convinced herself she was doing something brave. I said, "What ring?" My mother's mouth tightened. "Don't do that." My father rubbed his forehead, the way he did when he wanted to look disappointed instead of involved. "Anna, your grandmother's diamond ring is missing." The room changed, not loudly, not dramatically. It changed in the way people breathe differently when accusation enters the air. Grandma's ring, the one with the small oval diamond, the thin gold band, and the tiny engraving inside that said, "To Rose, 1968. My grandfather had given it to her when they were 21 and broke, before he could afford anything large. Grandma had worn it every day for 54 years, even after arthritis bent her fingers and the ring had to be moved from one hand to the other. She used to twist it when she was thinking. She used to tap it against her teacup when she was annoyed. When I was little, I thought that sound meant wisdom was loading, and now my family was staring at me as if I had stolen it before her body had even left the ground. I looked at my mother and said, "I didn't take Grandma's ring." Aunt Carol shifted in her chair. My cousin Beth whispered something to her husband. Melissa looked down at her lap. My mother said, "You were the last person in her bedroom." I felt my face go hot. "I was choosing a scarf for her burial outfit because you asked me to." "And the ring was there before that," Mom said. "Was it?" I asked. That was the first moment her confidence flickered. Just a little. "Your grandmother always said that ring should stay in the family," she said. "And you always thought that meant you." I stared at her. "Grandma told me stories about it. That doesn't mean I stole it." Then Melissa spoke, soft and wounded. "Anna, nobody wants to accuse you." I looked at her then, really looked. My beautiful younger sister, with perfect hair, perfect makeup, and the kind of innocence she put on like perfume when a room needed convincing. She said, "But if you took it because you were grieving, we can understand." That sentence hit me harder than my mother's accusation, because it did not just call me a thief. It called me weak, unstable, the kind of woman who would steal from her dead grandmother and need forgiveness for it. I stood up slowly. I did not touch that ring. My father said, "Sit down, Anna." I did not sit. "No, you do not get to accuse me in front of everyone and then tell me how to stand." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Your grandmother trusted you." "Yes," I said. "She did." The room went silent again, because everyone heard the difference between what my mother meant and what I meant. Then Evan's phone started ringing. At first, nobody moved. It vibrated loudly against the wooden sideboard, where he had set it beside a stack of paper plates. He glanced at the screen and went pale. Melissa whispered, "Don't answer that." My father, still trying to control the room, said, "Answer it. We're all family here." Evan swallowed, picked up the phone, and said, "Hello?" The voice on the other end was loud enough for everyone near the table to hear. "Mr. Cole, this is Martin from Westbridge Jewelers. I'm calling about the vintage diamond ring you brought in for resizing." Melissa stopped breathing. The jeweler continued, "We found an engraving inside the band. It says, 'To Rose, 1968. Before we polish it, we need to confirm whether you want the inscription preserved." Nobody spoke. Nobody blinked. My mother looked from Evan to Melissa, then slowly back to me. And in that terrible quiet, the truth finally entered the room. I had not stolen Grandma's ring. My sister had. Before that dinner, before the accusation, before the jeweler said my grandmother's name out loud, the ring had never been about money to me. It was about Grandma Rose's hands. When I think of her, I do not first remember her face, even though I loved her face. I remember her hands. Soft skin, swollen knuckles, a thin blue vein running across the back of one hand, flour under her nails when she baked biscuits, rose-scented lotion in the winter, and that little gold ring catching light when she reached across the table to pat my wrist. Grandma Rose was my father's mother, but she was more mother to me than anyone else when I was growing up. My actual mother, Linda Brooks, was not cruel in the obvious ways. She did not scream often. She did not throw things. She did not forget birthdays. Her cruelty was cleaner than that. It came dressed as correction. Anna, don't make that face. Anna, your hair looks better when you try. Anna, let Melissa have the front seat. She gets carsick. Anna, you know your sister is more sensitive than you. Melissa was 2 years younger than me, but somehow she was always the delicate one. When she cried, people rushed in. When I cried, people gave me instructions. Dad used to call me his sturdy girl. He meant it as praise. I learned early that sturdy people got leaned on. Melissa got rescued. I got responsibilities. Grandma Rose saw it. She never said, "Your parents are unfair," because she came from a generation that spoke truth sideways. But she would pull me into the kitchen and say, "Come help me with the pie, Anna. You don't need to sit there and listen to everyone forget how hard you try." She taught me how to roll dough, how to make tea strong enough to hold a spoon upright, how to read a room without letting the room read you first. When I was 12, I asked her about the ring. She was washing dishes, and I noticed the diamond flashing under soap bubbles. "Is it expensive?" I asked. She laughed. "Not expensive enough for your grandfather to stop apologizing for it." Then she dried her hands, slid the ring off with effort, and placed it in my palm. It was warm from her skin. "Your grandfather bought this when he was working nights at the factory," she said. "He saved for 6 months. I told him we needed a refrigerator more than a ring. He said love deserved at least one foolish thing." I turned it carefully and saw the engraving. "To Rose, 1968. "Why does it have your name?" I asked. "Because he said if I ever got mad enough to throw it at him, whoever found it would know where to return it." I laughed so hard she laughed too. Then she looked at me more seriously. "It is not the diamond that matters, Anna. It is being known by someone long enough that they can write your name where nobody else sees it." I did not understand how important that sentence would become. Years later, when Grandpa died, Grandma still wore the ring every day. My mother said she should put it away somewhere safe. Aunt Carol said the diamond might get lost. Melissa said it was vintage and could be reset into something modern. Grandma smiled at Melissa and said, "Not everything old needs improving." Melissa pouted. Mom changed the subject. I remember because Grandma winked at me afterward. That was the thing about Grandma. She noticed who wanted things and who wanted her. There is a difference. Melissa liked Grandma in the way people like old family stories and pretty heirlooms. She visited on holidays, took pictures, kissed Grandma's cheek, and later posted captions about bloodlines and strong women. I visited on Thursdays after work. I took her trash out. I checked her mail. I sat with her when the house felt too quiet. I knew she hated green peas but ate them because her doctor said vegetables mattered. I knew she watched courtroom shows with the volume too loud. I knew she missed Grandpa most when it rained. I knew she twisted that ring when she was thinking about the past. And she knew me. Not the version my family used. Not sturdy Anna, practical Anna, jealous Anna, difficult Anna, just Anna. That was why losing her felt like losing the one witness who could prove I had always been softer than they allowed me to be. Grandma's health began fading slowly, then all at once. At first, she only forgot little things. She called me twice in one afternoon to ask what time I was coming. She put the milk in the pantry and the cereal in the refrigerator. She repeated stories and then laughed at herself, saying, "If it was good enough to tell once, it can survive a second trip." We laughed with her because laughing felt safer than being afraid. Then she fell in the garden. Then she forgot to take her blood pressure medicine. Then she stopped driving after she scraped the side of her car against the mailbox and cried for an hour, not because of the car, but because she knew something had changed. My father promised he and my mother would check on her more. Aunt Carol said she would come every Sunday. Melissa said she would visit all the time because family mattered. For 2 weeks, everyone acted like a family in a commercial. Then life became inconvenient. Dad got busy. Mom said Grandma became difficult when she was tired. Aunt Carol's knees hurt. Melissa's work schedule changed. Somehow, the Thursday visits that had always been mine became the visits that held everything together. I did not mind at first. I loved Grandma. I liked her house. I liked making tea in her kitchen and hearing the old clock tick like a stubborn heart. But love does not mean work is not work. I started picking up prescriptions, then groceries. Then I started staying overnight when she had bad days. I drove her to the doctor. I helped her write checks when the numbers confused her. I called insurance companies. I found a handyman when her back steps loosened. I helped her bathe after a small procedure left her weak. And when she cried from embarrassment, I cried too, but only later in my car. My family thanked me in the beginning. "You're so good with her," Mom would say. "Grandma listens to you," Dad would say. Melissa said, "I wish I had your patience." But praise can be a trap when it replaces help. By the second year, if I could not go, everyone acted shocked. One Thursday, I had the flu and told Mom I could not drive to Grandma's. Mom sighed and said, "Anna, she counts on you." I said, "I know, but I'm sick." She replied, "We all have things." I dragged myself there with soup in a thermos and a fever behind my eyes. Grandma took one look at me and said, "Who sent you here like this?" I smiled weakly. "I sent myself." She tapped her ring on the teacup. "No, you did not." She always knew. During those years, the ring became something Grandma talked about more often. Not in a greedy way, in a memory way. She would twist it and tell me another story about Grandpa. How he proposed in a parking lot because he was too nervous to wait until dinner. How he lost the receipt and panicked when the ring was too big. How she wore it during every hard thing they survived. The miscarriage nobody talked about. The year the factory laid him off. The winter pipes burst. The day Dad left for college and Grandma cried in the pantry so he would not see. One evening, about 7 months before she died, she asked me to get a small wooden box from her dresser. Inside were old letters, a war medal from her brother, a broken pearl necklace, and a folded note with my name written on it. "Not yet," she said when I touched the note. "When the time comes." I frowned. "What time?" She looked down at the ring. "The time when people start pretending memory is the same as ownership." That sentence frightened me. "Grandma, what does that mean?" She took my hand and placed it over the ring. "It means some people will want what proves they loved me. You already have that proof." I did not know what to say. She smiled sadly. "Still, I want you to have the ring." I shook my head. "Grandma, don't. That will cause problems." She laughed softly. "Baby, they are already problems. The ring will only give them a shape." Then she folded my fingers around hers and said, "Promise me you will not let them make you ashamed of being loved." I promised. I did not understand then how hard that promise would be to keep. The week Grandma died, the house felt like it was already becoming a memory. The curtains were closed most of the time because light hurt her eyes. The hallway smelled like lavender lotion, medicine, and the chicken soup she no longer wanted. The television stayed off. Even the old clock seemed quieter, like time was trying to be respectful. I took off work and stayed there for 4 days. Dad came in the evenings and stood near the doorway, not sure what to do with his hands. Mom brought casseroles and then complained that nobody ate. Aunt Carol cried every time she entered the room, which upset Grandma, so she stopped coming inside and started sitting in the kitchen. Melissa arrived on the 3rd day, wearing a cream sweater and full makeup. She sat beside Grandma's bed for 15 minutes, held her hand, took one photo, and whispered, "You look beautiful, Grandma." Grandma's eyes moved toward her, but she did not speak. After Melissa left, Grandma opened her hand slowly. Her ring was still there. She whispered. She looked at it. I leaned closer. "Who?" Grandma's eyes were closed again. "Maddie." The family called Melissa Maddie when they wanted her to sound innocent. I said, "She probably just remembers it." Grandma's mouth tightened. "No." That was all she said. The next morning, Grandma was clearer than she had been in weeks. I found her awake before sunrise, staring at the window. "Anna," she said. I sat beside her. "I'm here." She moved her hand toward the bedside table, where the small wooden box sat. The note. My chest tightened. "Now?" She nodded. I opened the box and took out the folded paper with my name on it. "Do I read it?" "After," she whispered. Then, with effort that seemed to cost her more than I could bear, she twisted the ring off her finger. Her knuckles had swollen so much that I almost told her to stop, but she was determined. She placed the ring in my palm. "Keep it safe," she said. I began to cry. "Grandma, I can't." Her eyes sharpened. "You can. They'll say I took it." "They will say many things." Her fingers closed around mine. Truth does not become false because people shout. I wanted to put the ring back on her hand. It felt wrong to hold it while she was still breathing, but she looked so fierce, so completely herself, that I could not disobey. I wrapped it in a handkerchief and placed it back in the wooden box with the note. "Where should I put it?" I asked. She whispered, "Not here." I froze. "What?" Her breathing was shallow. "Your purse. Take it home. Bring the note after." I hesitated too long. She opened her eyes again. "Anna." So I did it. I put the ring and the note in my purse. Then I sat beside her and hated the weight of that purse by my chair. Grandma died that night. Not dramatically, not with a speech. She simply exhaled, and the room became a place where she was not. I called Dad first, then Mom, then Aunt Carol. Melissa did not answer, so I texted her. For the next few days, everything blurred. Funeral home, obituary, flowers, pastor, clothes, food, calls from relatives who had not visited in years, but suddenly had opinions about hymns. In the middle of all that, I kept the wooden box in my bedroom drawer, wrapped in an old scarf. I planned to tell everyone after the funeral, when we were calmer, when grief was less sharp, when Grandma's note could speak for itself. That was my mistake. I underestimated how fast people start dividing the belongings of someone they claim they are not ready to lose. The day after the funeral, Mom called and asked if I had seen Grandma's ring. Her voice was careful, too careful. I said, "Why?" She said, "It isn't in her jewelry dish." I closed my eyes. "Mom, we need to talk." She went quiet. Then she said, "Anna, did you take it?" Not, "Do you know where it is?" Not, "Did Grandma give it to you?" "Did you take it?" That was the moment I knew the accusation had been waiting for me before I even entered the room. I should have told her then. I should have said, "Grandma gave it to me, and she wrote a note." I should have driven over with the box, sat everyone down, and let the truth stand in daylight. But grief makes cowards of even honest people sometimes. I heard the suspicion in my mother's voice, and instead of opening my hand, I closed it. I said, "We'll talk at the dinner." Mom's voice hardened. "What dinner?" "The memorial dinner on Friday." "Anna, if you have something, you need to say it now." "I will on Friday." She hung up without saying goodbye. For the next 2 days, the family moved around me like a courtroom preparing for trial. Aunt Carol texted, "Honey, if you know anything about the ring, it's better to be honest." My cousin Beth sent a heart emoji and then asked if I had been feeling overwhelmed. Dad called once and said, "Your mother is very upset." I asked, "Are you asking if I stole from Grandma?" He sighed. "I'm asking you not to make this worse." Melissa sent nothing. That bothered me more than the others. Melissa always inserted herself into drama if she could be seen as kind. Her silence felt like a locked door. On Thursday night, I opened the wooden box for the first time since Grandma died. The ring lay inside the handkerchief, small and quiet. Beside it was the note. My hands shook as I unfolded it. Grandma's handwriting had become uneven near the end, but it was still hers. "Dear Anna," it began, "if you are reading this, I have gone ahead to find your grandfather and tell him he still owes me a refrigerator." I laughed and cried at the same time. Then I kept reading. "I am giving you my ring, not because you asked, but because you never did. You sat with me when there was nothing to gain. You came when I was frightened. You remembered the medicine, the tea, the stories, and the silence. This ring is not payment. Nothing could pay for love. It is a witness. It knows the hand that held yours. If anyone tells you that you stole it, remember that some people mistake not being chosen for being wronged. Do not apologize for what I freely gave. I pressed the paper to my chest and cried until my eyes hurt. The note should have comforted me. Instead, it made me afraid, because Grandma knew. She knew exactly what they would say. She knew the people who smiled at her funeral might turn around and call her last act unfair. On Friday, I brought the wooden box in my purse. I planned to wait until after people ate, then speak privately with my parents and Melissa. I did not want a scene. I did not want to humiliate anyone. I still thought if I handled the truth gently, people might treat it gently in return. The dinner was at my parents' house. Mom had arranged white lilies around Grandma's photo and used the good tablecloth. It looked beautiful in the way memorials look beautiful when people are trying to control grief through decoration. Melissa arrived late with Evan. She wore a black dress and pearl earrings I recognized from Grandma's jewelry box. My stomach tightened. I asked quietly, "Are those Grandma's?" She touched one earring. Mom said I could borrow them. Borrow. From a dead woman. Evan looked uncomfortable. He was not a bad man as far as I knew. A little polished, a little too eager to please Melissa, but kind enough in small ways. He hugged me and said, "I'm sorry about your Grandma." I believed him. That almost made what happened later worse. During dinner, nobody mentioned the ring at first. People told stories. Grandma burning biscuits. Grandma singing off-key in church. Grandma threatening to haunt anyone who bought cheap coffee. I smiled. I even laughed once. Then Aunt Carol said, "It still feels strange without her ring." The table went quiet. My mother placed her fork down. Melissa looked at her plate. Evan checked his phone. And I knew the trial had begun. My mother stood slowly, like she had been waiting for permission. "I didn't want to bring this up tonight," she said, which was how I knew she absolutely had wanted to bring it up tonight. "But your grandmother's ring is missing." The old church friends looked uncomfortable. Aunt Carol folded her hands. Dad stared at the table. Mom looked at me. "Anna, if grief made you do something impulsive, we can handle it as a family." My whole body went cold. "You're accusing me of stealing at Grandma's memorial dinner?" Mom's eyes filled instantly. "I am trying to protect you from worse consequences." That was classic Linda Brooks. Turn the knife, then call it protection. Melissa spoke softly. "Anna, nobody wants this to become ugly." I looked at her. "Then why are you helping make it ugly?" Her lips parted. She looked hurt, which made 3 relatives glance at me like I had slapped her. Aunt Carol said, "You were the last one in Rose's bedroom." I reached for my purse under the table. My fingers touched the wooden box. I could still stop this. I could open it. I could read Grandma's note. But before I could move, Mom said, "Please don't dig yourself deeper." I froze. Not because she stopped me, but because I suddenly understood something. If I pulled out the ring right then, they would not see a gift. They would see evidence. They had already chosen the shape of the story. Anna wanted the ring. Anna was alone with Grandma. Anna took it. Anything I said now would be forced into that shape. So I let go of the box. I said, "I did not steal from Grandma." Dad finally looked up. "Then where is it?" I stared at him. "You ask that like I'm the only person who had access to her room." Melissa whispered, "Anna." I turned to her. "What?" She swallowed. "You talked about that ring for years." "So did you." Her face changed, just enough. I saw it. Maybe no one else did, but I did. Evan's phone buzzed on the sideboard. He glanced at it and quickly looked away. My father said, "This family has been through enough." I almost laughed. "Then why are you doing this in front of everyone?" Mom said, "Because private conversations have not worked. We never had one. You avoided them. I said we would talk tonight. And here we are." The logic was so circular I felt dizzy. Aunt Carol sighed. "Anna, your grandmother would be heartbroken." That sentence hurt because it borrowed Grandma's love to attack me. I stood. "Do not use her against me." Mom's tears spilled over. "Then give back what belongs to the family." The family. Not Grandma, not me, the family. That vague, hungry thing that always seemed to need what one person had. Evan's phone started ringing then. Loud, insistent, almost rude in the silence. He looked at the screen and muttered, "I'll call back." Melissa grabbed his wrist under the table. I saw it. My father, irritated by the interruption, said, "Answer it, Evan. Clearly nobody is eating now." Evan shook his head. "It's not important." The phone stopped, then immediately started again. My mother turned sharply. "For heaven's sake, answer it!" Evan looked at Melissa. Melissa's face had gone pale beneath her makeup. "Don't," she whispered. Everyone heard that. Slowly, Evan picked up the phone. "Hello?" His voice cracked. The room held its breath. The man on the other end said, loud enough for half the table to hear, "Mr. Cole, this is Martin from Westbridge Jewelers. I'm sorry to bother you after hours, but we need approval on the vintage ring before resizing." Melissa closed her eyes. The jeweler continued, "There's an old engraving inside the band. It says, 'To Rose, 1968. Did you want us to preserve that?" I did not feel victory. I did not feel relief. I felt something much colder. Because when the truth finally came, it did not walk in gently. It dragged my sister with it. No one spoke after the jeweler said Grandma's name. Evan stood with the phone pressed to his ear, his face emptied of color. Melissa's hand was still on his wrist, but now it looked less like a warning and more like a confession. The jeweler's voice came again. "Mr. Cole, are you there?" Evan swallowed. "Yes." My mother whispered, "What ring?" She sounded small. It was the first time all night she sounded unsure of herself. Evan looked at Melissa. "The ring you gave me," he said quietly. Melissa shook her head, not at him exactly, but at the room, at the air, at the truth becoming real. "Evan, hang up." But he did not. He said into the phone, "Do not change anything. Do not resize it. Do not polish it. I'll call you back." Then he ended the call. The silence that followed was terrible. It was not the silence of nobody knowing what to say. It was the silence of everyone knowing exactly what had happened and not wanting to be the first to say it. I looked at Melissa. "You took Grandma's ring." She started crying immediately. "I was going to explain." I laughed once, and it sounded nothing like me. "When?" She wiped her face carefully, still trying not to ruin her makeup. "After the funeral, after everything calmed down. You let them accuse me." Her crying grew louder. "I panicked. You sat there while Mom called me a thief. I didn't know she would do it like that." My mother turned to Melissa slowly. "You had the ring?" Melissa looked at her like a child caught breaking a dish. "Mom, I can explain." Mom stepped back from the table. "You let me accuse your sister." That sentence almost made me bitterly laugh because my mother said it like she had been forced. Like her accusation was a tool Melissa had placed in her hand instead of a weapon she had chosen to swing. I said, "No. You accused me because it was easy." Mom flinched. Dad finally stood. "Everyone calm down." I turned on him. "No!" My voice was not loud, but it cut through the room. "No more calm. No more making this easier for everybody else." Evan looked at me, devastated. "Anna, I didn't know." I believed him. "What did she tell you?" He looked at Melissa. She whispered, "Please." He shook his head. "She said Grandma gave it to her before she died. She said it was meaningful because she wanted to use it as her engagement ring after resizing." My stomach turned. Melissa had not only stolen the ring, she had rewritten Grandma's last act and handed it to herself. Aunt Carol whispered, "Rose would never give Melissa that ring." Melissa cried harder. "Why would you say that?" Aunt Carol looked at her sadly. "Because Rose was kind, not confused." That was the first time someone else defended Grandma's choice before I even revealed it. My mother sank back into her chair. "Melissa, why?" Melissa looked around, searching for sympathy. "Because Anna was going to get everything emotional. She always made the ring into this big thing between her and Grandma. I just thought, if I took it before people started fighting, it would stay in the family." I stared at her. "You stole it to prevent fighting?" "I was going to tell you after." "No," I said. "You were going to wear it until nobody could challenge it without looking cruel." Evan looked physically sick. "Melissa," she turned to him, desperate. "I wanted something of Grandma with us, for our marriage." He stepped back. "You gave me a stolen ring to propose with." "Not stolen. It has her name inside it." Melissa said, "It belonged to our family." I reached into my purse then, slowly. Everyone watched. I took out the wooden box. My mother whispered, "Anna." I placed it on the table and opened it. Empty handkerchief, folded note. No ring, because the ring was at the jeweler. I unfolded Grandma's note. You wanted to know why I waited, I said. This is why. Because Grandma knew exactly what you would do. Melissa shook her head. Don't. I read anyway. My voice shook when I began, but it did not break. Dear Anna, if you are reading this, I have gone ahead to find your grandfather and tell him he still owes me a refrigerator. A few people let out broken little laughs through tears. I kept going. I am giving you my ring not because you asked, but because you never did. You sat with me when there was nothing to gain. You came when I was frightened. You remembered the medicine, the tea, the stories, and the silence. This ring is not payment. Nothing could pay for love. It is a witness. It knows the hand that held yours. My mother covered her mouth. I did not look at her. If anyone tells you that you stole it, remember that some people mistake not being chosen for being wronged. Do not apologize for what I freely gave. By the time I finished, the room felt completely different. Not healed, not peaceful, just stripped. The polite memorial dinner had become a place where nobody could hide behind grief anymore. Melissa was crying silently now, not performing as much as collapsing inward. Evan stared at the floor. Dad sat down heavily. Aunt Carol wiped her eyes. My mother whispered, "She wrote that." I placed the note on the table in front of her. Yes. Mom touched the edge of the paper but did not pick it up. Why didn't she tell me? There were so many answers I could have given. Because you would have argued? Because you would have told her she was being unfair? Because you would have called me manipulative? Because you loved Grandma, but you still thought her belongings were yours to distribute? Instead, I said, maybe she wanted one decision you couldn't manage. Mom closed her eyes. Dad said my name in warning. Anna. I turned to him. No, you don't get to warn me. You sat there while she accused me. His face tightened. I didn't know. You didn't ask. That landed. He looked away. Evan took his keys from the sideboard. Melissa grabbed his arm. Where are you going? He looked at her like he did not recognize her. To get the ring? Evan, please, we can talk. You let me take stolen property to a jeweler. I told you, I thought... No, he said. You hoped. That sentence silenced her more than anything I had said. He turned to me. Anna, I'm sorry. I'll bring it back tonight. I nodded because I could not speak. After he left, the dinner dissolved. People stood awkwardly, gathered coats, murmured apologies that were not theirs to give. Aunt Carol hugged me tightly and whispered, your grandmother knew what she was doing. My cousin Beth cried and said she should have never believed it. I wanted to tell her belief is a choice, but I was too tired. Soon only my immediate family remained in the dining room. Mom sat at the table, staring at Grandma's note. Dad stood behind her chair. Melissa had gone to the bathroom and locked the door. I could hear her sobbing through the hall. The old Anna would have gone to comfort her. The old Anna had been trained to treat Melissa's tears like an alarm, but I stayed where I was. Mom finally looked up. I am sorry. The words came out stiff, like they had to fight their way through pride. I waited. She added, I should not have said it in front of everyone. There it was. Not, I should not have accused you. Not, I should have trusted you. Not, I was wrong. Just the method, the timing, the public nature. I said, you should not have said it at all. Her lips pressed together. Anna, the ring was missing. And I was the easiest suspect. You were the last one in the room. Because you asked me to dress her for burial. Dad winced. Mom looked down. I continued. I touched her scarf. I brushed her hair. I cried over her hands because the ring was already gone from them, and I thought she had given it to me before she died because she trusted me. While I was doing that, you were already building a case against me. Mom said nothing. That was the first honest thing she did all night. Evan returned 40 minutes later. By then, most of the food had been cleared, though nobody had eaten much. He came in without knocking, holding a small velvet pouch from Westbridge Jewelers. Melissa came out of the hallway when she heard the door. Her face was swollen from crying. Evan did not look at her. He placed the pouch in front of me. They hadn't started work yet, he said. My hands trembled as I opened it. Grandma's ring slid into my palm, still warm from being handled, still small, still carrying a weight that had nothing to do with gold. I turned it and found the engraving. To Rose, 1968. For the first time since Grandma died, I felt like something of her had made it back across a dangerous river. I whispered, "Thank you." Evan nodded. Then he turned to Melissa. "I'm going to stay at my brother's tonight." Melissa started crying again. "You're leaving me over a ring?" He stared at her. "No, I'm leaving because you stole from your dead grandmother, lied to me, let your sister be accused, and still think the problem is the object." She flinched like each phrase hit separately. My mother stood. "Evan, this is between family." He looked at her. "I was about to marry into this family with a stolen heirloom on my fiancé's finger. It concerns me." Dad muttered, "This has gotten out of hand." Aunt Carol, who had stayed to help clean, turned from the kitchen doorway. "No, Richard. It got out of hand when Linda accused Anna instead of asking questions." My father looked at his sister, startled. "Carol." "Don't Carol me," she said. "Rose would be ashamed of this room." That sentence hurt everybody because it was true. After Evan left, Melissa turned on me. Not with tears this time, with anger. "Are you happy?" I looked at her. "No." "You got the ring. You got Grandma's letter. You made me look horrible." I stared at my sister, and for a second, I saw the shape of our whole childhood. Melissa taking something. Melissa crying when caught. Melissa becoming the injured party because consequences felt uncomfortable. "I didn't make you look horrible," I said. I stopped covering the mirror. She shook her head. "Grandma always liked you more." I looked down at the ring. "Grandma knew me more." "Because you made yourself useful." "No," I said quietly. "Because I stayed when she had nothing to give." Melissa's face twisted. "You think I didn't love her?" That was the hard question. The honest answer was complicated. I believed Melissa loved Grandma as an idea, as a Christmas memory, as a beautiful woman in old photos, as a family identity. I did not believe she loved Grandma enough to be inconvenienced by her decline. But I did not say all that. I said, "I think you loved what the ring would say about you." She started to cry again, but softer now. "I wanted something that made me feel connected. Then you should have visited." The words were simple, maybe too simple. They broke through something. Melissa sat down like her legs had given out. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Mom said, "Anna, maybe you should leave the ring here until everyone has calmed down." I almost smiled, not because it was funny, because even now, even after everything, her instinct was to remove the thing from my hand and call it peace. I slid the ring onto a chain around my neck. It did not fit my finger, and I was not ready to wear it that way. Against my chest, it felt safe. "No," I said. "Grandma gave it to me. I am taking it home." Mom looked like she wanted to object. Dad touched her shoulder. For once, he stopped her. That small gesture did not erase anything, but I noticed it. On the drive home, I kept one hand over the ring on my chest. I cried at every red light, not because I had won. Nothing about that night felt like winning. I cried because Grandma had known this would happen, and even knowing, she still chose me. She had left me a ring, a note, and a final act of trust. My family had turned it into a trial, but the verdict had not gone the way they expected. The next morning, my mother called at 8:14. I watched her name glow on my phone until it stopped. She called again at 8:17. Then Dad called, then Melissa, then Mom again. I made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and did not answer anyone. The ring lay beside my mug on its chain. I had barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Melissa's face when the jeweler said the engraving. I heard Mom saying, "Just give the ring back." I heard Grandma saying, "Do not apologize for what I freely gave." At 9:03, a message came from Dad. "We need to talk as a family." I typed, "No, we don't." Then I deleted it. I typed, "I need space." That one I sent. Mom replied immediately, "This is exactly what I was afraid of. You're letting a ring divide us." I stared at the message. A ring did not divide us. The ring revealed the division that had already been there. Melissa sent a longer message near noon. "I know you hate me right now, but you don't understand how it felt to always know Grandma preferred you. I made a terrible mistake. I panicked. Evan won't answer me. Please don't let this ruin my life." I read it 3 times. Not once did she say, "I'm sorry I let them accuse you." Not once did she say, "I'm sorry I stole it." Her life was the subject. Her pain. her consequences. Still, I did not respond cruelly. I wrote, "I hope you take responsibility. I am not helping you avoid it." Then I put my phone away. That afternoon, Aunt Carol came over with soup. She was my father's sister and had always been sharper than the rest of them. But grief had made her quieter. She sat at my table, saw the ring, and touched the chain gently. "Rose would be relieved," she said. That word undid me. Relieved. Not proud, not happy, relieved. As if Grandma had been holding her breath from wherever she was. Aunt Carol told me something then that I had not known. 2 months before Grandma died, Melissa had asked her about the ring. Not casually, specifically. "Do you think Grandma would mind if I used it as my engagement ring?" Aunt Carol had laughed, thinking it was a joke. Melissa had not laughed with her. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" I asked. Carol looked ashamed. "Because I thought she was just being Melissa, wanting pretty things out loud." "She stole it." "I know." She rubbed her forehead. "I should have paid attention." I was so tired of everyone realizing too late that Melissa meant what she said. Aunt Carol reached across the table. "Anna, your grandmother was clear with me too. She said if anything happened, the ring was yours." My eyes filled again. "Why didn't you say that last night?" "Because by the time I understood what was happening, the jeweler did it for me." She gave a small, sad smile. "Sometimes God uses poor timing as good evidence." I laughed despite myself. Over the next week, the family story shifted in small, predictable ways. At first, people said Melissa had stolen the ring. Then it became Melissa had taken the ring. Then Melissa had misunderstood. Then Melissa had been grieving. My mother's version became especially careful. "Both girls were emotional," she told Aunt Carol, who immediately told me. Both girls. As if one girl had stolen and the other had bled, and somehow balance required making them equal. I stopped attending family group texts. I muted my mother. I told Dad I would speak to him when he was ready to acknowledge the accusation, not just the embarrassment. He did not answer for 3 days. When he finally did, his message was short. "You're right. I should have asked you first." It was not enough, but it was something. Melissa and Evan postponed their wedding. Not canceled, postponed. Melissa told people they needed time after Grandma's passing. Evan told his brother the truth. The truth traveled, as truth does. Slower than gossip, but with better shoes. By the end of that month, everyone knew enough. Melissa stopped posting for a while. My mother stopped bringing up the ring. And I began learning how quiet life could be when I stopped rushing to make everyone comfortable with what they had done to me. A month after the memorial dinner, I went back to Grandma's house alone. Dad had been handling the estate paperwork, slowly and badly, and asked me to pick up a box of old books I wanted. I had avoided the house because I was afraid it would feel empty in a way I could not survive. But when I unlocked the door, it smelled faintly like dust, lavender, and the lemon polish Grandma used on Sundays. The silence was not empty. It was waiting. I walked room to room slowly. In the kitchen, her teacup still sat on the shelf with the tiny chip near the handle. In the living room, the clock still chimed 5 minutes late. In the bedroom, the jewelry dish was empty. I stood in front of it for a long time. That dish had started everything. Or maybe it had only revealed everything. Beside the dresser, tucked behind a stack of old scarves, I found another envelope. This one had my father's name on it, Richard. I stared at it, unsure if I should touch it. Then I called Dad. He answered on the second ring. "Anna, I found a letter for you at Grandma's." He was quiet. "Are you at the house?" "Yes." "I'll come." He arrived 20 minutes later, looking older than I remembered. Grief had changed him, but so had shame. He sat on the edge of Grandma's bed and held the envelope without opening it. "She was disappointed in me," he said. It was the first truly honest sentence he had spoken in months. I sat in the chair by the window. "I think she loved you and saw you clearly." He laughed once, sadly. "That sounds worse." "Sometimes it is." He opened the letter. I looked away to give him privacy, but he said, "Stay." So I did. He read silently. His face changed line by line. When he finished, he folded the paper carefully and cried in a way I had never seen my father cry. Not funeral tears, not polite grief, real, ashamed tears. He handed me the letter. I hesitated. He nodded. Grandma had written, "My son, you learned too early to avoid discomfort, and because of that, you have let the loudest person in the room decide what is true. Anna has paid for that. So has Melissa, though differently. Do not confuse peace with the absence of argument. Peace built on one child swallowing hurt is not peace. It is debt. Pay attention before it costs you both daughters." I lowered the letter. Dad's hands were shaking. "She knew," he said. I nodded. "She usually did." He looked at me then. "I am sorry." I waited, because I had learned not to grab the first apology like a starving person. He continued, "I'm sorry I believed Linda because it was easier. I'm sorry I let Melissa cry her way out of responsibility for years. I'm sorry I made you the sturdy one and then acted surprised when everyone leaned on you." That apology entered me slowly, not like a cure, more like warm water on frozen hands. It hurt as it helped. I said, "Thank you." He wiped his face. "I don't know how to fix it." "You don't fix it by asking me to move on." He nodded. "I know." "You fix it by telling the truth when I'm not in the room." That one made him look up. "I can do that." I hoped he could. I did not know yet. Before we left, I took the books Grandma had saved for me and one of her scarves. Dad stood in the doorway of her bedroom, staring at the jewelry dish. "Melissa wants to apologize," he said quietly. I closed the box. "Then she should figure out whether she wants to apologize or be forgiven." He did not argue. That was new. Outside, the rose bushes were starting to bloom. Grandma had planted them decades ago, and every spring they returned like a promise nobody had to keep because they simply knew how. I touched the ring at my chest and thought, I am still here. That felt like something Grandma would want me to know. Melissa came to my apartment 2 weeks later. She texted first, which was wise. "Can I come by? I want to apologize." Not explain, apologize. I stared at that message for a long time before saying yes. When she arrived, she wore no makeup and held no gift. That mattered. Melissa believed in arriving with props. Flowers, coffee, a sad face, something that asked to be forgiven before she spoke. This time, she came empty-handed. I let her in but did not hug her. She noticed. We sat at my kitchen table with the ring between us, still on its chain. She looked at it once, then looked away. "I'm sorry," she said. 2 words, clean. No crying yet. No but. I waited. She swallowed. "I stole Grandma's ring. I lied to Evan. I let Mom accuse you. I thought if I acted shocked enough, everyone would believe what they already believed about you." My chest tightened. There it was, the correct wound. I said nothing because I did not want to interrupt honesty while it was finally happening. Melissa continued, "I hated that Grandma chose you. I hated that she saw something in you that she didn't see in me. And instead of asking myself why, I decided you must have taken it somehow. Not the ring, her love." Her eyes filled, but she did not perform the tears. She let them fall. "That is ugly," she said. "I know." I looked at my sister, and for the first time in a long time, I saw someone trying to stand without the usual costume. "Why did you take it?" I asked. She wiped her face. "Because when I saw it in the wooden box, I thought, if it leaves this house with Anna, then it means Grandma really chose her. But if I take it first, maybe I can make the story different." Where was it? In her dresser, the day after she died. I went in looking for earrings. I saw the ring wasn't on her hand and checked the box. My stomach turned. Grandma had told me to take it home, but in the chaos after her death, I had brought the box back to help choose burial items, then left it in the dresser while dealing with the funeral director. I remembered now. 10 minutes, maybe 15, long enough. Melissa whispered, "I told myself Grandma would understand because it was for my engagement. Then I told Evan she gave it to me. Then Mom started asking about it and I panicked. When she suspected you, I let her." "You didn't just let her," I said. "You helped her." Melissa closed her eyes. "I know. That mattered too." I asked, "What happens with Evan?" She looked down. "I don't know. We're in counseling. He gave back the proposal ring he bought me, not Grandma's ring. The one he actually bought. He said he can't marry me unless he trusts the person I become next more than the person I was that night. I respected him for that." Melissa took a breath. "I'm not asking for the ring. I'm not asking you to talk to Mom. I'm not asking for everything to be okay. What are you asking for? She looked at me. A chance to stop making you carry the version of me everyone protected. I did not answer right away. Forgiveness is complicated when the person who hurt you finally says the right thing. Part of you wants to reward them for finding the truth. Another part remembers how long you paid before they found it. I touched the ring. I don't hate you. Melissa cried harder then, quietly. But I don't trust you either. She nodded. I know. And I'm not going back to being the sister who makes your consequences softer. I know. We sat in silence. It was not comfortable, but it was real. When she left, she paused at the door and said, Grandma was right to give it to you. That was the first time she had said it. After she left, I sat by the window until sunset. The ring caught the light against my palm. To Rose, 1968. A name hidden where only someone close would see it. Grandma had once told me being known was more important than being praised. My family had praised Melissa and used me. Grandma had known me. In the months that followed, life did not become perfect. Mom's apologies remained uneven. Dad tried harder. Aunt Carol became a witness when family stories started shifting. Evan and Melissa postponed the wedding indefinitely. I wore Grandma's ring on the chain for a year before resizing it to fit my right hand. I did not turn it into something modern. I did not make it bigger. I kept the engraving. Sometimes people compliment the ring, and I simply say, it was my grandmother's. I do not tell the whole story every time. I do not need to. My name is Anna Brooks. I'm 30 years old. My family accused me of stealing my grandmother's ring 3 days after her funeral. My mother told me to give it back. My sister watched me be blamed for what she had done. Then the jeweler called and read the engraving out loud. To Rose, 1968. That tiny sentence inside the band did what no argument could do. It brought the truth into a room full of people who had already decided I was guilty. But the ring was never really the inheritance. The real inheritance was being seen clearly by someone who loved me without needing me to be smaller. Grandma knew who stayed. She knew who listened. She knew who would be blamed. So she left me her ring, her words, and one final reminder. Some people will mistake not being chosen for being wronged. Do not apologize for what was freely given. I don't anymore.